Hello, everybody, and welcome to myself, Gary, from Alternative Interactions, and you are.
I'm Izabela from Tarot by Izabela.
Thank you very much, Isabella. Isabella and I were talking the other day, and one of the subjects that came up was something that I'm going to call Ambrosia, and Isabella will explain this a little bit more in a second. But Ambrosia, the food of the gods. And we were trying to work out what it could be, what it could mean, and where it kind of leads us to in the modern day and history all at the same time. So I'm just going to read out a very, very brief thing about Ambrosia, and then I'll hand over to Isabella, who will explain a lot more about the research that she's done. And then I think we'll be looking at the crystal ball, won't we, Isabella?
Yes, yes,
Superb,
we will.
superb. So Ambrosia is known as the food of gods, and I think ambrosia relates to the Greek gods, by the way. Um, it's often paired with nectar, its counterpart in the form of a drink, and it was responsible for maintaining the external existence, very interesting language there, of the gods. Gods often are depicted feasting on ambrosia, with doves bringing these special substances to where the gods were, to their places and homes. So that's quite an interesting link that we have doves, and we've seen doves before with herbage in their mouths, haven't we? In images of Noah and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite interesting that. So with that, Isabella, I'm going to pass over to you because I know you've got an awful lot more about the explanation of what I term as ambrosia for the audience.
Yes. Well, I have been looking into this a little bit, and there is, of course, a lot of information. And the term ambrosia, just like Gary said, it's the Greek version of an immortality drink or food or whatever. But to make it simple, uh, we're going to call all the different immortality drinks for ambrosia because every culture has their own name for it. Like Soma in the Vedic scripture, golden drops in the Egyptian uh, mythology. So there are many, many names for the same thing. But the main purpose of the immortality drink, we're going to call it overall ambrosia in this video, is prolong life, heal, and as Gary said, keep the god's appearance up, the physical appearance. So it's some kind of immortality stuff or drink. And the main thing that also comes back in all of those myths around the world is that the ambrosia is forbidden for humans to consume. And that was a main point. Only the gods were allowed to eat this ambrosia for whatever reason. And we're going to try to figure out what ambrosia could be made of and also why it was forbidden for the humans. Why were the humans forbidden to um, gain immortality and become as the gods? And what is also interesting here, even if the gods have special names in the Greek mythology, their characters and their deeds and how personalities comes back in all cultures, but they have different names. For example, we have Loki, it could be Hermes in Greek, or another name in another culture. they always talk about the same group of gods, but they have different names. And it could be gods, male gods, and female goddesses. So that comes back in every culture. The main characteristics, but with different names. What was also very interesting in this was that most of the ambrosia, the immortality, was made of some kind of plants. But it was not only made from plants, there was some secret ingredients that no scripture wanted to talk about. What kind of secret ingredients was added to this immortality food or drink to make it work? And if we are lucky, maybe we'll be able to decipher what it could be and why it was forbidden for humans. And if there is maybe some deeper meaning to all of this. And Gary mentioned that the doves was giving the ambrosia to the Greek gods. And doves are some nice creatures with wings. And even in some pictures, you can see that the gods were giving ambrosia from some kind of angel-like little figures.
Cherubs.
Cherubs. And cherubs are many times also symbolize, oh, my little angel. And you talk about small children. And what if there is any connection there? So yeah, that was the main thing in what I found in those different myths. That is a secret recipe for this. Humans are not allowed. Certain parts are from their plant life, but other parts are a big question mark. And later on, we're gonna go a little bit deeper because I found here also Sumerian, old Sumerian goddess called, I have to read it because I cannot pronounce her name, Ninhursag. And this myth backs more than 3,000 years BC. And she created out of clay and divine flesh the first humans. And she was given a role of a creator of life. And that brings us also to the thing that in every culture, they want to have something of their own. That they are the first one with this religion or that myth. But when one look back on old myths, the new culture always have taken the older myth, changed the name of the main characters as to a name of their own people that sounds more like their culture, and change the myth a little bit and make it their own. And that we see through, for example, the Bible story or other stories. They always take the myth from people that have lived before, change the name of the main characters, and now, wow, we are the first one. We are unique. We are God's chosen one. Everyone wants to be God's chosen people. But, well, that story repeats itself, just like the deluge with Noah. That story existed thousands of years before the Bible made it its own, but with a different character's name. So that's also very interesting. So that everything repeats itself. It's that we are talking really about the same group of gods from the beginning, but through different culture, they change the names. Only change the names. And a little bit what their stories around them. What they did and what they did not. But We always talk about the same group of characters. Yeah, that's mainly what I. If I want to go deeper into every detail, this video will be many hours long. But this is more to summarize for you all to know a little bit that nothing we hear is new. It's just a remake version of a story that existed before. And that goes also for the culture today. Everything what happens in our world today, it's also a rewritten story from something that happened before.
Yeah, a very good example of two goddesses that are exactly the same person but with different names would be Diana and Artemis. And Artemis they're currently using for a name of a rocket, but Artemis and Diana are exactly the same person in two different cultures and two different times. Now, we would use the word Diana more so in our cultural times now because Diana is more of a normal name for us to use.
Mm,
As Artemis would have been much more common at the time of which the name Artemis was used. That's just a very simple, basic example of what Izabela was talking about.
yeah, and that it's mainly the same character. And the thing that the first creator was a female that made humans out of clay. And then, have we heard that story before? A god, but now they changed the female god to a male god just to. Mm, what is this going on here?
I'm looking forward to diving into that one because I have a couple of ideas about this one that kind of feel a bit crazy, but I think I could be onto something with a bit of a knowing in that. So, but I'm really looking forward to what your crystal ball is going to tell us about what we're calling ambrosia today.
Yes. So now put those papers away. I'm gonna look a little bit into the crystal and ask the crystal if it can give me some hint about ambrosia. And later on, I have something new to all of you. I'm gonna use my divination rods, copper rods, to be answering some questions that may come up. So now, first, I'm gonna concentrate on my crystal and let's see if the crystal have something to say about ambrosia. Okay, that was interesting. Um, the first thing I saw the DNA string. And when ambrosia is added, then I saw the DNA light up like an electric current going through the DNA or make it stronger that it cannot break apart or like hold it more together. So ambrosia in itself is some kind of substance that gives the DNA more strength or makes the body more electric or makes everything to the current work much better inside of the bodies. And I don't see ambrosia as a myth or as a fairy tale story. because I see a big laboratory. So it's a substance that can be made in some kind of laboratory environment. Since it's so old, the story about Ambrosia is so old, it doesn't mean the laboratory is a laboratory that we know as today in our culture, in our civilization. There have been more advanced civilization than us many times in our history. So this is more like a symbol of a laboratory. So it's made under supervision in a concealed environment. And the drops, because I see them as drops being put into some kind of bottles or containers, the drops, when this ambrosia is finished, they are a little bit like translucent. They shine, it radiates light from it. So it's a substance that is thick, like syrup of some kind, but it's emits light. Mm. And I see a lot of closed door, behind closed, so it's a very well guarded secret. And those who make them, I see them without mouths, symbolized. They are hushed down. They are not allowed to talk about it, because if you see someone without a mouth, this person cannot say anything if it doesn't have a mouth. So symbolically, it's a very, very strict secret. And those who make this substance of immortality are not humans. They don't look human. I see them like very tall creatures, bald, and they all look almost the same. And they have no expression, emotions on their faces. They're like just like robotic, biological robots of some kind. And it's very, very guarded substance. And okay, that was very interesting. And it's made for the gods, yes, because I see a cabinet and there are bottles, and on every bottle is a name from every person that ordered this ambrosia or god. And for every god, it's slightly different. The composition differs a little bit for every god. So if you cannot give orange juice to everyone. So the first god got orange juice with a couple of drops of pink grape. The other one get orange juice with 2 drops of blueberry juice, and so on and so on. The main ingredient is the same, but it differs for every consumer. So it will be customized for the person that, or personality, because I don't think even it's a person that orders this drink. Um, and it also shows if humans, because sometimes humans do consume this, and it must be accustomed for the human body. The human cannot drink from the recipe of the gods. It will still contain a bit orange juice, but it will have other ingredients. If not, it will be very, very toxic for humans. And it is um, in our DNA or in our subconscious, the treasure of an immortality drink have always exist in our subconscious. For ages, millennia, people have been looking for this immortality drink. So it's something programmed inside of us that there must be. We have the alchemists in the Middle Ages who are looking for the philosopher's stone who could turn lead into gold, but also in combination with something else could give you immortality. So that is something programmed inside of us. And in the DNA. So we have at some point witnessed this in our past, and it had keep on repeating the search of for immortality. And somehow nobody wants to die. It doesn't come naturally for humans to die. We always try to prolong life and live as long as possible, and it seems somehow unnatural to die. But we have accepted it even though we don't have accepted it. So it's a natural search to prolong life as much as possible. And that subject, if there was something you could drink to become immortal, sounds quite appealing to almost all of us. Or at least not immortal, live for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's mainly what I could see in the crystal ball if we go into the part of Ambrosia. Quite interesting.
That was quite fascinating, and the customized batches
Mm?
was something that was I hadn't even considered that. I
Oh,
just considered it would
yeah.
be, yeah, but also that kind of makes sense because if you're customizing batches for the individual's needs, for somebody to take that or steal it and take it might
Mm,
not have the effect
yes.
that is desired on the person who takes that batch of for somebody else.
Mm,
So that's quite a fascinating concept as
yeah.
well as those people who make it or those beings that make it. They were almost non-human.
Mm-hmm. They looked like human, but still not, because they were very tall, bald, and with no emotions, like biological robots, and symbolically no mouths. But they have mouths, but they show me because they cannot talk or they don't have a voice or they're just doing what they're programmed for.
That leads on to some very, very interesting kind of questions, doesn't it?
Mm.
I'm not quite sure which ones just yet, but who are they and where did they come from? Would be what, really, I don't know. That's very interesting, isn't it?
Because what I saw here was more like they have been here for a long, long time. And they are created for this job, only for this job.
Something's come to me on that one. I think it'll be a question for later.
Okay.
I've just had something come to me from what like we have Neanderthals in the past,
Mm,
and we have another group called the Cro-Magnons, and the Cro-Magnons were, I think, slightly shorter armed than we are, and possibly slightly taller. But the Cro-Magnons were very, very clever. They were a very advanced civilization. I think to the point in which they actually had button-up trousers.
Oh,
So we're talking pre-Neanderthal or that era of, if that even is really a thing.
mm.
And apparently there was a cataclysm or some kind of event where the Neanderthals wiped out the Cro-Magnon. But what if they weren't, and the Cro-Magnon are actually the ones that make the elixir of life, Ambrosia? That
That
would
could
be.
be, yeah. But they didn't look like Cro-Magnon.
They didn't.
No, they looked like biological robots, programmed workforce,
Yeah.
because it has to be this liquid has to be very strictly followed the recipe, the protocol, and a human or a Cro-Magnon or a Neanderthal, they are more human. They can make mistakes. They can get distracted by a sound or by a flash of light or by emotion. They maybe have, you know, menstrual cramps or whatever. But these creatures are not. They are non-sex. They are just a workforce.
I think this leads in potentially to, and I did write this down because I knew I was never going to be able to say it again. Niam Sak. I think is that Nian Sak, the original creator of humans out of
The
clay.
female one,
Yeah,
um, Nin Hursag, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Neem Sak. Yeah. Now, I think in the past we have had some. How can I put this? Some changes to our DNA
Mm.
or changes to our makeup. And I actually believe that we have two different kinds of human beings that look identical to each other, but they're two different species walking on this realm currently. Now, I think the secondary part of that may have been around the time of Enki and what they were doing. And I wonder if they created this group around the Enki time for that specific purpose to service the gods with ambrosia. I do wonder that.
Shall we ask the rods?
I think that would be a very good question for the rods.
Mm. So everybody, here I have two copper rods. I normally don't use them in my videos, so this is a premiere. And the copper rods functions a little bit like a pendulum. When the copper rods answer yes to a question, they're gonna cross each other like this. Mm? Depending on the strong yes, weaker yes, you can read more precisely through copper rods how big of a yes it is. And when the copper rods don't want to answer, they normally don't move at all. And when it's a strong no or a no, then it goes in the opposite direction like this. Hmm? So now, Gary, ask your question, please.
Let's start from the beginning. Neen Hu Sak was the original creator of humans in this realm. Is that correct, please?
Was Nin Husak the original creator of humans in this realm? They cross each other, but it's not a strong yes. She was not the only creator. She was a creator, but not the only one.
Okay, so was Neen Hu Sak one of the creators of the humans that we currently have today on this realm?
Was Nin Husak? Yeah, she was a creator of a human kind.
Do we know Neen Husak in another name? And would that name be Sophia and or Gaia?
Is Ninhusak known as Sophia? And then we have, as you see, a very strong yes. That is a super strong yes. It cannot be more yes than this.
Well, Sophia is a lot easier to pronounce. I'm very pleased to say so. So, was Sophia and the group that created us in human form, were we the first of the generations of that process, please? Does that make sense?
Mm,
How can I put this in another way? Are we the original humans that was created by Sophia?
if we are the original
Yeah, are
humans,
we? Yeah,
yes, we are.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay. There are stories about Enki creating humans or changing humans. I think we have two different sorts of humans, and I'll go into this in a second, everyone. Did Enki, or was Enki and his team responsible for changing the humans, DNA or otherwise?
Not all humans, but some of the humans, yes.
That's a brilliant answer, that one. So, was Sophia involved in the creation of the rhesus positive human?
If she was, yes, she was. R- RH positive. Mm.
Yeah, Rh positive.
Yes,
Was Enki responsible for the rhesus negative, the Rh negative humans
was
in this
Enki
realm?
responsible for the negative? Yes, he was.
Did Enki also create those beings that make the ambrosia for them?
Yes,
And I'd never known about them before. It's the first time I've come across them, which is very, very interesting.
because it's a well guarded secret. You cannot have, you know, John from the street down the street to make ambrosia. It's super secret procedure.
Okay,
Sorry, I just got that thought, and they give it to me. There are hierarchy in all the gods to keep the gods under control so they don't go astray or don't do against the top. You have to make a special drink because if you don't obey the top, we're gonna change the ingredients of the ambrosia. Maybe you get sick or maybe you die.
very interesting. It's a control mechanism.
Is it a control mechanism for the gods? Oh, yeah.
Remember, everybody, nothing is free in this world.
Mm. Nothing is free, yes. Nothing is free.
Did Enki create rhesus negative people because the gods and himself are fundamentally rhesus negative blood group?
Yes.
My next question would be, there's a secret ingredient that we don't know yet, but I'm guessing what it is at the moment in my mind. Did Enki create rhesus negative people so it was easier for him to get the secret ingredient from that particular blood group of people?
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
Now,
Let's go back to the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life. That also called the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Bad.
yes. Okay. Is the tree from the Garden of Eden
Mm.
symbolic of the secret ingredient from humans?
Yes. Only
Okay.
one rod is moving.
Okay.
So it's 50%, but not. Mm.
Would the fruit from the tree of knowledge and the tree itself be the symbolic nature of ambrosia?
That was a little bit more complicated question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Is the tree of life, tree of knowledge, a symbol of ambrosia?
there we go.
Yes. Now,
Does that relate to a part of a human that is required for the ingredients?
yes.
Thinking about the tree of knowledge, everybody, it's very symbolic and has been used previously as and I've seen this image before of a child and the mother and a connection between the two. That connection would be the tree trunk, which would be the umbilical cord.
Mm. Yes. Yes. But if you see the placenta with the umbilical cord and you lay it flat on a table, it does look like a tree with a tree trunk and root. And what grows from it is the child that is connected to it. So, yeah, that's why it's called the tree of life, because it looks like a placenta with the umbilical cord. And the placenta and the cord gives life to the child that is about to be born.
So, would I be correct in saying that the Adam and Eve story with the tree and the snake and the apple is fundamentally looking at ambrosia? As in, would this be symbolic of the ambrosia?
That is forbidden for humans. Yes, it is. Mm.
Okay. Is this why when we give birth today, or when women, ladies, give birth today, that the umbilical cords are cut so quickly and squirreled off?
Yes. They need the stem cells, the DNA. Mm.
Yes, they do.
Because in past times, past cultures, They didn't cut off the umbilical cord directly because it still pumped important uh,
Nutrients. Yeah.
nutrients and oxygen to the baby, and the birth should not be so shocking for the baby and the new world when you keep the umbilical cord a couple of minutes longer before you cut it. Yes. Mm.
Can we take a step back now? Enki is part of what we would know as the Anunnaki.
Mm.
If they're still doing this process today, are the original Anunnaki, people like Enki, still alive today?
Are the original Anunnaki still alive today? Most of them are. There could be been some rebels and they were punished, but most of them are. Yeah, most of them are. 95%, I would say.
One of the rebels that we're told was a rebel in history was Enoch. If Enoch rebelled, was Enoch unalived by the group, his peers? I'm trying to say this in a nice way. Of was Enoch one of the rebels because it said that Enoch passed on the Great Pyramid
Mm.
details, and so fundamentally Enoch would have potentially gone against the Anunnaki. So is would if Enki's still alive, is the character that we know as Enoch still alive?
Is Enoch still alive? No, not in flesh anyway. No,
Hmm.
he's alive in spirit, but not in flesh.
Yeah, because as you said, that clarified it. They started to
Mm.
move again. So can the rods just confirm that Isabel said is correct, that his Enki Enoch, sorry, is alive in spirit but not in the flesh on this realm?
Is Enoch alive in spirit, but not in flesh? Yeah.
Yeah. So he did betray the
Did he,
Anunnaki.
did he betray the Anunnaki? Yeah, he did. He played a little bit double game. He betrayed them, but he was acting like he did not. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like double agent, triple agent.
So what I'm kind of thinking of is that they didn't necessarily do anything to him. This goes back to the control mechanism. Did they stop giving him ambrosia?
Yeah. Or they changed the recipe. They maybe gave him, but they changed the recipe. If we go back to the crystal ball as a control mechanism, they could change the recipe.
So this is really interesting. What we've found out by asking these questions is that Sophia or Gaia created within a group an energy, created the first human beings who were rhesus positive.
Mm.
We then have the Anunnaki, who are, I also think, the fallen angels. Would that be correct? Are they the one and the same?
Yeah. Fallen angels are more described like entities that really don't belong in this realm. They could be from outer space or from another dimension, but they don't belong here. That's why they are called fallen. Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
mean that they have to be angels, but they are entities. Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And these entities that came in, these fallen angels, as we call them that, are they the ones that still control this realm today?
Yeah, mainly.
And I'm going to have to ask this one while we're here for my own personal satisfaction. Are they the ones that brought the moon in?
Oh, this fallen entity is the one who broke. Yes, it is.
And I'm going to have to
Very
ask
much.
this. Yeah, I'm going to have to ask this one again. And I'm sorry, everybody. Uh, I've got the opportunity to ask personal questions at the moment. I'm going to. Are they the ones that brought in the Fibonacci sequence?
Yeah, to mess
That
things up. Mm,
yeah, yeah. Because Gaia or Sophia's energy is what I call the Christ code, Kryst code,
mm,
which is creational energy.
yes.
Doesn't get bigger than that, does it? Yes.
Mm.
So, wow, where does this take us now? I wasn't expecting really to go down this. Okay, let's take this to a more modern period,
Mm.
and I'm going to mention Epstein.
Ooh. Mm.
Was Epstein fundamentally working for the fallen angels?
The Anunnaki. Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay, I think this has been hidden from us because it's just I'm just putting things together and things Isabella and I have previously spoken about. So I want to try and get this out in a way that's non YouTube offensive. um, we know from text that mortals are sometimes given ambrosia. Is this correct, please?
Yes. But a special form of ambrosia. Not the same as for the so-called gods.
So mortals would be given a different mixture of ambrosia that's made by those beings that were created by Enki.
Yes.
Okay, so we have always assumed that the control mechanism of Epstein was little ones, and I'm not going to say any more than that. Now,
Mm.
was part of the control mechanism of Epstein the fact that he was supplying ambrosia to some of the key players in this world?
Mm. Uh, yes, but that was not only what he did.
I understand that.
Yeah. And now we have to make a difference between A, chrome, and ambrosia, because they are two different substances made in different ways.
Yes. Yeah. So hopefully the audience here understands what a chrome is,
Mm.
which is a party substance from my understanding. Could the rods
Yeah.
confirm, is that more of a party substance that's used for?
Yes, it is. They're
Okay.
moving quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the party substance, which we're now going to call the party substance, everybody, in code,
Mm.
is the party substance, does that extend life in the same way ambrosia does?
I'm not moving at all.
I probably haven't asked the question right. Does the party substance extend life?
If it extends life, make you live longer. A chrome, yes. But they don't give you immortality.
No.
Just, 20, 30, 40 years maybe.
The party substance is more of a mortal longevity drug.
Is it more of a mortal longevity drug? 50-50. It's 50% mortal longevity and 50% party substance for the gods.
Yeah,
So it's both. Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Epstein was supplying to certain chosen super wealthy people Ambrosia. Is this correct, please?
Was he supplying ambrosia to super wealthy certain people? Yeah, it is a yes. It's going slightly up. It's like for every year some new was added. The group was not so big in the beginning, but for every year more and it grow bigger and bigger. That's how the rod wants to explain this.
Okay. So, as an example, if a prime minister was on this, or a secretary of state, or a president, or somebody in politics
Mm.
was on this substance, they would be easily controlled by just changing the formula so that they did not get what they desired.
Oh yeah. Yes, indeed.
Now, this is for entertainment purposes only, everybody.
Yes,
And
of course.
the name I'm about to give out is just for entertainment purposes and for no reason other than it's a name that sprung to mind. Would somebody like Angela Merkel have been taking Ambrosia, and when they removed it from her, she shook and vibrated like a jackhammer?
Yes.
I'm not going to say any other names because this is for entertainment purposes only, and all we're doing is a work of fiction, and none of what
Mm-hmm.
we're saying has any credence or reality in the real world. Just saying that,
they,
everybody.
they,
'Cause
they confirm that.
okay, so what we're seeing, and can I just ask this question just to confirm a thought of mine as well about this? Was one of the main reasons for nunneries in the early days to ensure a supply of births for the
Making of ambrosia. Yes.
history is not what you think it is, everybody.
Mm-mm.
So, by that nature, could we conclude that the church or religion is fully involved in and understands about ambrosia?
Yes. And maybe not the lowest levels, but if you climb up the hierarchy, the higher you climb, the more piece of the cake you get to see. Just like you're looking through a keyhole, you just see a small piece of the room. But when you climb the ladder, the hole gets bigger, bigger until you see what is in the room, really in the room.
Yeah. I know in the United Kingdom and certainly in other countries, there will be questions about this one. So I'm going to have to say it. Entertainment purposes only again. The royal families are very, very long lived. Very long lived. Do the royal families partake in ambrosia for their long lives?
80%, 75, 80% of them do.
Bearing in mind that the Anunnaki are still alive today, have some of the royals in the past been played by the Anunnaki from the original?
Yes, they have. Absolutely.
I now want to go on to the banking, which is the modern control of all of us, everybody. Debt slavery and the chains that are money around our necks and our arms.
Mm.
Are the big controlling banking families part of the Anunnaki?
Most of them. 90%. 90, 95. Yeah.
Would
There
it
could
be
be
right?
small private banks that are out of it, but the
Yeah,
big banks certainly yes.
yeah. So would I be correct in saying that the people that we see, and I know this sounds fanciful, everybody, but the people we see, like the Rothschilds, are actually 5 or 6 thousand year old beings?
Not all of them, but some of them, or many of them, likely. Because sometimes they have to put a mortal in the front just to keep the appearance up.
But in the background, we have something called the
Yes.
BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, and and that will be run in the background via these people that control all the central banks in the world. So those in charge of the BIS would be Anunnaki on Ambrosia, controlling everything.
Mm. Ah, is it a question?
It could be a question. Yeah, why not? I just ask a
No.
question.
Yeah. Is
Is
if the Anunnaki is controlling it. Yes. Since they are immortal beings, 6,000 years for them is nothing. It's like a week for us, maybe. Yes. 6,000 years for them are nothing. Mm.
yeah, that puts a completely different slant onto everything that we're looking at moving forward.
Mm.
I know people like David Icke have spoken about the reptilian races, but fundamentally, we're talking about the Anunnaki who will give out. This is a question: do the Anunnaki or have the Anunnaki hid behind the misdirection of reptiles running this realm?
Yes.
Because how fanciful would it be for somebody to say that these people who run everything, okay, would these people be as we would class the black nobility, the 13 ruling families? Are these
I,
the Anunnaki?
yes and no. Not really, because that could also be some cover up story. There is some truth in it, but not completely.
The one thing that I think we want to finish on, because I'm aware of the time and what's going on, and maybe a last look at the crystal ball, or maybe a card reading, perhaps depends what you feel like, Izabela, would be um,
You know what it would be? I'm gonna tell you. The procedure of making this so-called ambrosia, you needed some plants, plant material. You needed something that it comes from human, like the DNA, or some stem cells from the umbilical cord, but you also needed a third part. And there we go to the Philosopher's Stone, the story of the Philosopher's Stone and the Holy Grail, and so on. The Philosopher's Stone was a substance that could turn lead into gold, could also help to make the Ambrosia, the Immortality drink. And many times the Holy Grail, Aka, Philosopher's Stone, is represented as a chalice cup made of metal. And in the Catholic mass, call it mass, before the bread is turned into the flesh of Christ and the wine is turned into the blood of Christ, they put it in a special box to mature before it can give you eternal life when you eat and drink it. So the question here could be, is it something else is needed? The third thing that we have to make the ambrosia, some kind of metal, because it's always in the churches presented as a cup of made of metal, gold or silver or whatever. And it could be that there is some technical procedure that is needed to make this substance.
Brilliant question.
Mm.
So, does the does this ambrosia require a metal or a combination of metals to create?
That is a big, big, big yes.
And is that why gold is so important in this world?
Oh, yeah. Because one of the substances could be gold.
And is the other substance silver, or one of the other substance silver?
Yes.
Okay, this is just coming to me. Is this why they destroyed the old church bells? Because the alchemical makeup of the church bells was exactly what they would use for making, yes.
Mm,
And the church bells, the old church bells, would have given us free energy and heat, by the way, everybody.
yeah. So the conspiracy goes very deep. And what we talked about here is just one layer that came up. And this is millions of layers, thousands, millions of layers. And we are just trying to um, um, brush away the first layer of dirt to see what is beneath. And then more and more, like an archaeologist.
Archaeologist, yes.
Archaeologist, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm kind of blown away with a lot of those answers. I don't know about
Mm.
you, but I was wondering about some of them, but we've really put some the answers to the questions. We've really put some very, very fundamental
But this is,
responses,
yeah,
you know.
but what we do, we try to connect the dots. We try to see patterns, like some kind of pattern recognition. Okay, we have this and this. How do they connect? Oh my God, this and this and this. And some kind of map is being drawn through this, through these connections. Mm?
Yeah. And I do have to say before we go, everybody, that there's a gentleman called Tyler Hanson who does facial um, comparisons of different people, and this is kind of comes from an idea of his for me as much as anything, where he will take certain celebrities and different celebrities or people from the past and the future, and he'll cross reference their faces, and the faces seem to match with the same kind of scars and blemishes. And if somebody could live that long, how? And I think the Ambrosia is the answer to potentially, I'm not saying he's correct or he's right or wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying it was a thought process that made me think there could be something to this and how.
And that's how we started to talk that we should do a video about this. What is going on here?
Yeah, yeah.
For
And I think,
entertainment purpose only. This
correct.
is just a story.
But I think it opens a can of worms up, and hopefully many others will now start to run with these ideas and develop them further, as I'm sure Isabella and myself will do as well. Because I think we've come across some very, very, very interesting information, and there was a lot there to take in for everybody. I do understand that. Saying that there's two different kinds of peoples walk in this realm who look identical, you know, very, very difficult one perhaps to get your head round, and I understand that.
But we will uh, deep dive deeper into this, and we are planning another video, like a continuation of this discussion, to maybe look further into one of those areas we have been talked about, because today is just like an overview of everything, because everything we talked about we can make a special video on each subject, on each question. We can go deeper and deeper into every topic we touch today.
Yes, we can. We can. So, with that, Isabella, I don't know if you, is there any need to
No,
do
I
any
think
more?
it's enough for today.
Yeah, so do I.
Because if not, we're gonna continue like 5, 6 more hours. Everybody gonna get tired of listening.
So, with that, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to Tarot by Isabella. And please like, share, and subscribe to myself, Gary from Alternative Interactions. We really do appreciate all your comments, all your likes, shares. It means the world to us both. And thank you very much for your ongoing support, everybody. And with that, everybody, love, light, and blessings for me. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
And we shall see you very soon, everyone. Bye bye.